Interesting thing called the dialectic begins. All right, now. This is where the dialectic is not something you, at this point, that you're establishing with someone else. It's not a dialogue except with yourself. And what you're now going to try to explore is the idea of the good or the one. Oh, what is interesting about that? Shouldn't be any difficulties in doing that. But if there are, and that blocks you or frustrates you, we're calling those things blocks on the path. And therefore, if you give it up, blocks on the path. Now, what kind of dialectic, first, before we go further into this, is essential to ask? If someone then, one way or the other, gains such experience, and this is perhaps an extremely interesting question for many people and traditions, why need there be anything else other than this experience? Why not that being the ultimate? Now that's a real question, because within it and experiencing it, one that simultaneously with this experience recognizes very clearly within it that it is impossible for any experience to be beyond this. It's obvious. And therefore, why need there be anything beyond this thing, since it appears very clearly in the experience to be an ultimate experience? What is known by that? What's known by that is that when one is involved in it, it is impossible to conceive of anything beyond it, more powerful than it, and a more profound experience. It's impossible, even though this experience admits of degrees within it. That's obvious, right? What we're saying is that it looks like we're now exploring why there is a need to postulate anything else other than this ultimate experience, which is sometimes described phenomenologically as a divine radiance. All right, it's also explored, and meaning the impact it has on one, is beauty itself. In the symposium, it's also called the perfection of beauty. Well, that's why there's a dialectic. Because this is a very important question. Why is there a need for another? Why need there be another? Why isn't that ultimate? Okay, there's several reasons. Let's take a look at them. One is that is there an awareness of the experience being experienced? If anybody can say that this experience is capable of being more profoundly participated in, then if that's what is going on in the experience, then there is an awareness within the experience for a more profound experience. This is really two sides of one point, so let's just call it A and B for the moment. They are experience of this where there is no sense of other. And therefore, 1A and 1B for this kind of experience or the person experiencing, that in no sense, since there's no sense of another, point 1 and point 1B, 1A and 1B, would not be applicable. Right? Now, that is to say, all right, if we can picture this, there's a simultaneous, undifferentiated, continuum of which there is no sense of duality, but identity. Now, look here. Let's take case number 2 for a few minutes, all right? Case number 2. Because case number 1, A and B, is relatively simple to deal with, and perhaps we should do that right now since it's easy to do. Both 1A and 1B presuppose an awareness while one is in the experience, and therefore it's a dual. Right? And there's a two-ness to it. That's not a one, that's a duality. And given that, one still can raise the question, good heavens, which is more ultimate? Since in the ultimate experience there is still the subject. And therefore it generates these kinds of questions naturally and as a consequence of it. 2. All right? There it is, no sense of other, same experience. We go over here now for a few minutes. To play now presupposes you can do the following. If there is a oneness, presupposes there must be a one. If there's a union of something, then something must have been brought together in a unitary state. If there's some wholeness, then there must certainly have been a whole from which a wholeness can be derived. If there's a process involved, then obviously if you go to the condition for something that's responsible for something that has a higher rank than the thing from which it is derived. If that's the case, all of this seems clearly to be generated out of the one or the good.